Good evening. I don't know, it might be good morning, good evening for me. I'm super late today, but I'm here. It's already 8:30 here, but and it looks like a storm is coming in. So live with Dr. Mom on my Moving Forward series, Building a Strong Foundation. We have been discussing a Bible study, 52 Women in the Bible, that I find is incredibly interesting by Jeannie Syswerda. Oh, sorry, Syswerda. Anyway, so we are on number 32, which is pretty interesting. Her name is Gomer, and her name means completion. So, pretty interesting take on this is that our pastor at my son's church that I went to just presented this. He's been doing a series on the oddballs in the Bible, and it's Hosea. So I thought it was pretty interesting that it coincided, and I sort of was able to sort of know the gist of everything. So basically, what he was saying is that during this time, God was trying to clear the land of, unfaithfulness and things like that. And so he had a prophet, Hosea, and he told him to go marry basically a prostitute. And so this is the story of Hosea, which was a prophet, married Gomer, and she was basically a prostitute. And so just goes to show how God works through people, right? So anyway, here we are. Her name is Gomer. Hosea 1-3. Though a married woman, she carried on numerous love affairs, crediting her lovers for the gifts her husband had given her. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go take to yourself an adulterous wife and children of unfaithfulness, because the land, so he was using that as an example, is guilty of the vilest adultery and departing from the Lord." So he married Gomer. The Lord said to him, you have to wonder, reading through this, you have to wonder, was he attracted to her and God knew it? I don't know. That sort of, you don't know that part of it. You don't know that part of the story. Anyways, the Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again. So Hosea married her. They had kids, and then later on, and because I knew the story from church, Gomer, his wife, goes back into prostitution, sells herself to her pimp, basically. And Hosea, the Lord said, go and get her back and bring her back to your house and pay to get her back and forgive her. He was giving this an example of what was going on at that time. So I thought that was pretty interesting. That had to have been very difficult. The Lord said to me, go show your love to your wife again, though she is loved by another and is an adulteress. Love her as the Lord loves the Israelites. So they turned to other gods and loved the sacred raisin cakes. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and about a homer and a lethek of barley. Then I told her, you are to live with me many days. You must not be a prostitute or be intimate with any man, and I will live with you. Basically, he was saying, I'm going to forgive you. Well, there's so many parts of the story. Did she want to be forgiven? Did she want to go back? I don't know, any of those things. But it seems like it was pretty heart-wrenching story in ways. So I bought, for the Israelites will live many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or sacred stones, without ephod or idol. Afterward, the Israelites will return and seek the Lord their God and David their king. They will come trembling to the Lord and to his blessings in the last days. Very interesting story, isn't it, about Gomer? Okay, this is her life and times. Gomer's husband Hosea appeared on the scene as the last of the prophets who spoke the word of the Lord. To the doomed northern kingdom, this is in Hosea 1:1. to the doomed northern kingdom. Before long, the Assyrians would conquer the capital of Samaria and take thousands of Israelites captive. Here we go again in captivity. When the book of Hosea begins with the word of the Lord, it asserts Hosea's authority as a prophet, that God has spoken to him and that he must relay the message to the people. The Israelites in Palestine had the law God had given to Moses and the people of Sinai. This consisted of the Ten Commandments as well as the other rules for living included in the books of Moses, Genesis through Deuteronomy. However, those laws didn't cover many of life's situations and decisions. God instituted the office of the prophet for the many times when a specific revelation of God was needed for the people to know what they should do next. We don't always know how prophets receive their messages from God. At times, which is very interesting, at times visions and dreams gave the message. Ezekiel and Daniel both recorded visions that contained a definite message from God. Other times, as in Hosea's case, the prophets simply declared that their words were from the Lord. The emphasis of God's prophets was never on the method of receiving his word, whether mysterious or obvious, but on the message itself and on the people's need to follow. God made it very clear that if the people would only listen and obediently follow the words of the prophets, he would give them all they needed to face an unknown future. So what's happening in our life and times? Just as God provided for his people in the promised land, he has provided for us. He may not miraculously reveal the path or supernaturally tell us his will, as he did with the Israelites, but he has revealed himself and his plans for us through the Bible. And his messengers today underscore and explain what Scripture tells us. We can be assured that God will go with us, just as he went with the Israelites, holding our hands as we face whatever our futures hold, which I have experienced that firsthand because not too long ago I took a step of faith and quit my job and bought an RV, and here I am living on the road, living my best life. My daughter-in-law would say, I am living my best life. Okay, so I have a little thing on who were Hosea and Gomer in the Bible. So Hosea was a prophet during the reign of 4 different kings. That's in Hosea 1:1, spanning approximately 38 years in the 8th century BC. And Gomer was a promiscuous woman. The Lord told Hosea to marry. Their life together was, now did he, I don't know. It says he told her to marry a promiscuous woman. Their life together was an enacted prophecy pointing to the pain God experiences over our sin and the love he feels for us despite us. The words of Hosea's prophecy concern the wrath of a spurned husband and the forgiveness of true love, which is pretty awesome. I mean, that would be very difficult, right? She's selling herself on the street, basically, to a pimp. Hosea was a prophet. Okay, sorry. Okay. Their life together. Okay, the story. Their life is a love story, but not the fairy tale kind. Hosea was called to the ministry of a prophet early in his life. And the book of the Bible devoted to his name spans almost the duration of his lifetime. What we see as 14 pages of the Bible are snippets of a life devoted to the work of God. Somebody outside here. Oh, a bunch of somebody. Okay. Okay, in Hosea's time, the Israelites were devoted to gods that they could make. Their primary devotion was to prophets in their own pursuits. The lesser gods whom they felt they could control made them more comfortable in their lifestyles. Things had been going well for them, and this had made them cocky. Instead of recognizing that God had blessed them, they thought of how wonderful they were and how much farther they could take themselves. But slowly the tables were turning. The nations around them were becoming hungry. Their good fortune was running out. Instead of turning to God for help in their need, they held on to stubbornly trying to make their own way. They gave themselves to Assyria in the final blow of betrayal, and Assyria swallows them whole. Israel's overflow and the life of Gomer make the most sense through the lens of the betrayed lover who is trying to save them from themselves, God and Hosea. The prophecy of Hosea is filled with hope because it's not only a story of betrayal, but a story of ransom and renewal. We cannot clearly understand the life and prophecy of Hosea without keeping in mind the perspective of the broken-hearted and betrayed God who wants his people back, their whole selves, hearts and all. 3 strange things God told the prophet to do. God asked Hosea to show Israel their errors through doing some unconventional things. God told Hosea to marry an adulterous woman. First, God told Hosea to marry a woman known to be a wife of whoredom. She already had a sketchy reputation when he married her, and things went downhill from there. They had 3 children, then she left him after they had the children. 2, God told Hosea to name his children ominous names. This would be hard for me because I don't know. That's hard when you just like yesterday we were talking about one of the ladies' names was Weasel. Gosh. So God asked Hosea to name his kids after the spiritual reality that his life and marriage pointed to. So Jezreel was a place of death and brutal carnage where where bad things were committed in the name of power and success. This was the name of Hosea's first son. Lo Ruhamah means no mercy or without compassion. Some translations say not loved. This was the name of Hosea's daughter, declaring the consequence of Israel's persistence in sin. Lo Ami means not my people. This was the name of Hosea's third child, a son, declaring that Israel had chosen to be. So all of their names meant something sort of the times. These are possibly the most ominous names I've ever heard to give to children. These children were not even guaranteed to be So that's what I had read too, is these may not have been Hosea's children at all, because she was still very betraying him through all of it. So these children were not even guaranteed to be Hosea's biological children. Children by her, as everyone would suspect, though born in wedlock, would be begotten in idolatry. So she was still sleeping around, basically. So number 3, God told Hosea to take Gomer back after she left him. So after all that, he was asked to take her back. Finally, God asked him to take back a woman who, by the laws of the time, should have been stoned to death. Remember, they did that back then. And not only take her back, but buy her back. The man whom she ran to, as she embraced her idolatry wholeheartedly, required payment to release her back to her husband. So basically her pimp. The law allowed for Hosea to punish Gomer harshly, but instead he received her back into his home and paid the man she went with 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a leththi of barley. So the meaning of this love story. This love story is the most curious of kind because it is not defined by an individual's passion, lust, or desire. On the contrary, it points out what those passions and desires really lead us to and holds up the power of the gospel as a lens by which we can better spot our own sinfulness. So we are Gomer, basically. In the story of Hosea and Gomer, we are not to identify with the hero, Hosea. God does. We are a promiscuous Gomer who continues to leave her husband over and over in sin. So in other words, we are sin and leave God over and over again. Many who read the story want to hate Gomer, but we can't do that without consequently hating the sins within ourselves. Hosea and Gomer's story challenges each of us to look inside of our heart and see how much faithfulness is actually there. Then look up to see how much God is faithful to us. Blazing forth in every chapter of this Old Testament story is a sacrificial love of Christ. Hosea and Gomer's story is a gospel story. They are real consequences to our sin, but the love of God brings us back and forgives, which is meant to change our heart. That was Netta Marie Woods, who wrote about that part of it. And then I just kind of did one on remaining faithful, because that's pretty hard what he was going through. So when it comes to relationships, remaining faithful is never an option, but a priority, right? Be faithful in small things, because it is them that your strength lies. Okay. So that's pretty much the story for tonight. That's 32, and then tomorrow is going to be on Esther. Oh, we just had this, Esther. We just had this story also at church. So this is pretty cool how it's running in sequence. So, okay, I'm signing off, getting some sleep, and maybe hit the pickleball courts in the morning. So, sending much love. Have a great night. Bye.